Hey guys, with the recent release of the new Chaos Knights Codex, I thought it would be a very good time to finish off one of my war dogs, which I've had sitting on my shelf for about a year now. Today I'm going to do a full showcase of this model and give you somewhat of a tutorial as to how I painted it. So yeah, let me turn the camera around and we'll get straight into it. Okay, so here is my war dog. I do have some glam shots at the end, so this will just be more of a quick overview as to kind of like the different parts that I used to put this together. You can probably tell from a glance, but this is a bloat drone head that I've put on here. And I've actually taken one of the other heads from the bloat drone kit and used it on the legs here to kind of make this like purple exhaust, flame, smog stuff coming out. War dogs are like the fastest units that DevCard have access to, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to have that there. The only other thing is I've got this bell up the top here from the Blightbringer set, and I think this Nurgling and these bells underneath the helmet are also from that. Another thing you may have noticed is that the pose is slightly different. I have both the legs straight, whereas if you compare it to the standard war dog pose, and sorry if you can't see this right, maybe I'll spin it around. You can see it's usually like one leg in front of the other, whereas this one I kind of had them both standing up straight. The reason for that was when I put this together, like about a year ago, I was thinking about making like some kind of like crazy base for it, where it was like looking down on something, but didn't end up going with that concept. Now, like all my war dogs, I did fully magnetize this one, so I can change it from a brigand into a carnivore or an executioner if I like. This one actually has the body magnetized as well, so I can take off the top half. And then the only other thing that I've done here is, instead of magnetizing the top weapon, I've actually just added the missiles and the heavy stubber there and just kind of like put them on there, so I don't have to like chop and change them all around, because I find with this one's always a little bit like finicky to play around with, and I always lose them. I don't know where they are. They're somewhere in the office. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the model. Let's jump into a tutorial of how I actually painted this.
I use green stuff to add texture to the model to make it extra nurgly. I do a 2-to-1 mix of yellow to blue here so it's easier to sculpt, but just be mindful that it takes a little bit longer to set if you do this. This is actually a technique I saw someone post on Reddit. Basically, you make small lumps, put them on the model, and then you just kind of like poke holes in them. It's super easy and I think it looks pretty cool. The tool I'm using here was actually a cheap sculpting tool from Temu. Don't buy it, it's so bad. You can see it literally broke while I was trying to blend the green stuff. I really do need to get a better one at some point, so let me know in the comments if you have any recommendations. Once the green stuff was in place, I started adding weathering texture paints to the model. Here I'm using Agrellan Badland, which is kind of like an earthy clay texture to it. I try to keep this contained to the flat or clean areas of the armor so I don't cover any of the details. Once I had applied this, I decided to call it a night and let the green stuff and paint set. The next morning the texture paint had dried, but the green stuff still hadn't fully set. Maybe I should have gone for like a 4-to-3 mix instead of 2-to-1. Anyway, I started to add a second texture paint, Astro Granite, I think that's how you say it. This one's more like a gravel road kind of texture, and it's a bit more subtle than the Agrellan Badland. Same with before, I only add this to the clean or flat areas of the armor, avoiding any of the details that's already there. I don't mind going over the edges of the green stuff or the other paint because I think it helps blend it more. Then the last texture paint I use is Typhus Corrosion, and this creates a crusty rust-like texture once set, so I make sure to add it only to like the metallic areas of the model. This stuff has a really strong smell to it, so I would recommend wearing a mask while using it. Also make sure you use an old brush, as this paint will definitely ruin it. Once the paint had dried, I took the war dog into the garage and primed it with Chaos Black spray paint. It's probably not the most effective method, but I usually just put a piece of cardboard on the ground and spray the model on top of it. I'll flip it around a few times to make sure that I've covered the whole model in black. After that, it was time to bust out the airbrush and put on a few base coats. I have a very limited range of airbrush paints, so I try to mix colours when I can. Here you can see me mixing black and white to make grey for the armor areas. Next up, I loaded the airbrush with red and sprayed all the nurgly bits I created. The idea here was to create a gradient of a few different colours to try and create that nurgly look. Now, if you haven't noticed this already, I actually filmed all of this with my phone today. It's a bit of a learning process for me, but hopefully something I get better at over time. Okay, now we are up to the part of the project that I've been dreading the most, and that is the metallic areas. There are so many metallic areas on the War Dogs and Chaos Knights. The only reason I've been dreading it is because I knew that it was going to take me the longest. Anyway, jumping into it, grab an old brush and start covering everything in Nurgle-like oxide. This stuff is really toxic too, so make sure you got the windows open when using it. What I'm doing here is just adding a quick dirty layer of this to all the metallic and trim areas. I'm not too worried about being tidy here. I feel like that's one of the great things about painting miniatures in a Nurgle theme. You can almost be as messy as you like, and it will still look pretty good. Okay, from this point on, there is going to be a lot of dry brushing. First off, I use Retributor Armor, which is a brassy gold color, and I'm going over all the metallic bits we just painted. This works really well with the Nurgle-like oxide to give off that corroded look. Secondly, we are going to rust this bad boy up using Riser Rust. And again, just dry brushing all over the same areas we just covered. I am starting to get a little bit worried here because my model is starting to look very orange. Thirdly, I'm now dry brushing a grey colour over all of the armour plates. We almost lost all the original grey we painted on here with the other colours that were added. I ended up doing this step a couple of times to make sure it stood out against all the orange. Fourthly, I decided that the Nurgle parts I created were too similar in colour to the orange again. So I dry brushed them all with a few greens just to make them stand out more. Once this was all done, I started going over some of the smaller details like the bones, the Nurgling, the flies. There's a few little bits and pieces on here. And I'm not gonna lie, it was starting to bug me a little bit that this was looking so orange. So going in for the fifth and final dry brushing time, I used Iron Warrior, a dark metal color, over all the metallic areas again, this time excluding the trim. I'm really happy now with how this is looking. I think the Iron Warrior color really toned down that orange and made it look a whole lot better. With all the painting done, I started working on the base. I'm not going to go into too much detail explaining what I've done here, as I'm still experimenting with a few things. But basically I just needed to add some of this stuff to it before I could super glue the legs down. Once the legs were down, it was time to add the moss. This step is pretty straightforward. I add PVA glue to the areas of the mini that I want to look mossy, then sprinkle on some green flock. I make sure to do it from a few different angles too, just to make sure that all the glue area is covered. Then for a final touch, I add a few small tufts for some variation.
Alright guys, and that is how we got to this model here. Obviously I added a lot more moss than what I showed in that video, but I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial. I just had to move the table because the sun came out and it was so bright all of a sudden. But look at this now. 3 War Dogs, a Knight Tyrant. My Knights collection is actually becoming like half decent, and I still have 1 more War Dog in a box, which is on the sprue. And recently I picked up a Chaos Knight Despoiler as well. So I actually started putting them together yesterday. Still a bit of work to do, a lot of blue tack at the moment. But I think with this, I must have around surely like 1,500 points. I guess that's the cool thing about collecting so many Death Guard allies over the last couple of years, is that I've naturally kind of built a small Chaos Knights army. I'm not gonna lie guys, I might potentially pick up the Chaos Knights Codex and try out a couple of games with them, see how they go. I heard the Knight Tyrant's not as powerful as it used to be, and to be honest, I think I probably need to do a bit more work on this. It's I think I want to add a bit of moss on it, similar to what I've done here, just to kind of like tie it in together, because this, I've obviously got my snow theme, which was like my main theme for my Death Guard, and now I'm working on this kind of like swampy, foresty theme, which this kind of ties into. So if I add some moss and stuff on here, then that will tie it in really nicely. haven't quite decided how I'm going to paint the despoiler yet. There's a couple of techniques I still want to like try out before I even get into that. And then, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with this one. Hopefully I don't need to work on it for a while. Let me try spin this around so we're both in frame. I can't actually see myself, so I don't know if we're both in frame or not, but if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. You know, I've always been a big fan of Brigand allies and Carnivore allies, so I'm very excited to be working on the Brigand's big brother, the despoiler, because when I was looking at the stats, I was like, oh my god, it's got like a better melter and a better Gatling gun. And now that the points have gone down so much, I'm like, I think I can fit one of those into my list. So yeah, watch this space. Anyways, until next time guys, I'll see you around.